like to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's meeting on this warmish Tuesday, November 5, a little warmer than we've had in the recent week. Please join me in join Pastor Andrew Gonzalez as he leads us in invocation, and I'll start us off with the pledge. Please rise.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for who you are, for who you have promised to be, who you have proven to be so many times in our lives. Lord, I pray that you would bless this meeting tonight, that we would be able to look to your word for wisdom and conviction. Lord, I pray that everything we do in this building would bring glory to your name, from policies and procedures to attitudes and motives and the very intents of our heart. Father, I pray that you would bless the leaders that stand before me, bless their homes, encourage their spouses, uplift their children, I pray. We'll be careful to give you all the honor, all the praise that is due to your name. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Holliday. Here. Jones.
Here.
Clark. Here. Weatherford.
Here.
Garcia. Here. Foley. Mayor McCabe.
Here. At this time, we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda or items that you'd like to have moved from the consent agenda to new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Mayor.
Director Garcia, seconded by
Second.
Director Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is adopted. Consider approval of the minutes of the regularly held meeting of October 1, 2019. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Director Clark.
Second.
Director Holliday. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. We have one proclamation we have to read tonight regarding National Nurse Practitioner Week, and I'll be presenting this to Melissa Qualls so she can come to the podium, and then another nurse practitioner can flank her if they so choose. Proclamation, City of Hot Springs. Whereas nurse practitioners serve as trusted frontline health care providers for patients in our state, and whereas nurse practitioners are highly skilled practitioners with advanced education and clinical training, building upon their initial registered nurse preparation. And whereas there are more than 270,000 licensed nurse practitioners in the United States and 3,009 in Arkansas, providing primary, acute, and specialty care to patients of all ages and walks of life. And whereas in addition to diagnosing and treating acute and chronic conditions, nurses practitioners focus on health promotion, disease prevention, and health education counseling, guiding patients to make smarter health and lifestyle choices. And whereas the confidence that patients have in nurse practitioners delivered health care is evidenced by the more than 1 billion annual patient visits made to nurse practitioners across the country. And whereas more than 5 decades of research demonstrates the high quality of care provided by nurse practitioners, and whereas better utilization of nurse practitioners through modernized state laws and improved system policies creates better health through a more accessible, efficient, cost-effective, and higher quality healthcare system. And whereas 22 states and the District of Columbia have implemented full practice authority for nurse practitioners, granting patients full and direct access to the outstanding care offered by these healthcare providers. And whereas leading governmental and policy entities, including the National Academy of Medicine, National Council of State Boards of Nursing, National Governors Association, and Federal Trade Commission have taken notice of the benefits of nurse practitioners full practice authority and have endorsed such a regulatory model. And now, therefore, I, Pat McKay, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs, do hereby proclaim November 10th through 16th, 2019 as National Nurse Practitioner Week in Hot Springs, Arkansas. A witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed on this 5th day of November in the year of our Lord, 2019.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Mayor Pat McCabe and the City Board for recognizing our profession and the impact the nurse practitioners have on our communities, and we are looking forward to continuing to serve the City of Hot Springs and surrounding areas.
Thank you. Under the recognition of guests category, we have Mr. Gary Troutman, President of Hot Springs Metro Partnership, for his report. Mr. Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Appreciate the time tonight. Before I get started, just like to recognize that we have our Partnership Chairman, Franklin Bass, our Chamber Chairman, Don Gooch, and our team from the Metro Partnership, Michelle Ratcliffe and Cole McCaskill here. We'll start off where we left off 2 months ago when I last reported to you. We have 21 current projects in the mill. And I would remind you that Cole and Betsy Adkins and I also send out a weekly update. Mine goes out each Friday at 4 p.m., but just a little recap from those over the past few weeks. And I'll start with ACTI. I know it's a topic on everyone's mind now, but with the great leadership of Clay Farrar and Dr. Jack Porter, who are going to present to you later. We had community meetings with the congressional representatives, their staff, Senator Bozeman, Senator Cotton, Congressman Westerman. Pleased to tell you that we had submitted an environmental Phase 1 and 2 request. We really were hoping for an environmental 1, and we're pleasantly surprised the state jumped in, being a tenant of the building for 59 years, and went ahead and said, hey, let's do a Phase 2 as well. So that was music to our ears. And just the last few weeks, or in the last week, actually, Clay and I presented the A&P Commission last week. Our executive committee, along with Senator Bill Sample, presented to Rotary Club last Wednesday. We met with Congressman Westerman earlier today, and we were presenting to you later tonight and to the Quorum Court later. We're looking to get a real grassroots campaign. These gentlemen will tell you that they've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort on this project, but we need to get everyone in Hot Springs and Garland County on the same page and let the folks in Washington, D.C. know that this is a big thing for us. I mean, the ACTI building is really one of our two cornerstones of downtown and one of the bookends on Bathhouse Row. So we need to work as best we can to try to save it. Changing gears a little bit on workforce. Obviously, workforce, as I've told you before, is a huge component for us now. And it's what separates a winning city from the average ones. We've toured the North Little Rock High School Center of Excellence. We had West Memphis High School principal Gary Jackson, a Hot Springs product, here to tell us specifically what they're doing in the field of cybersecurity at West Memphis. Our workforce committee has met a couple times, chaired by Kelly Embry from National Park College. Michelle Ratcliffe, again, who's here, myself, and several volunteers from our Rotary Club taught 8th grade career training choices at Lake Hamilton Junior High. We'll be teaching at Hot Springs Junior Academy in a couple more weeks. Michelle and Cole just returned from the ACT Workforce Conference, got a lot of great ideas, some firsthand knowledge of some communities that are really doing well in this area. And we intend to visit West Memphis and Pea Ridge and the School of Innovation at Springdale and come back to formulate a plan on exactly what we want to do in Hot Springs. We've got to do something. Certainly with 3.5% unemployment and losing the 10,000 baby boomers every day for the next 11 years, workforce is critical. Under miscellaneous, we appreciate the opportunity. participated in the Envision Hot Springs project with design workshop at the invitation of Kathy Selman. And the big news, I guess, since we last met, Ritter Communications announcement at Oaklawn that they're putting the final touches on our local infrastructure build-out and already have 86 contracted companies they're working to provide connectivity to before they even located an office in Hot Springs. Cole and I attended the International Economic Development Council annual convention a couple weeks ago. Again, workforce a major topic. We hold our business expo and career fair with 87 booths. Nice success there. Representative Les Warren and National Park College President John Hogan continue to lead our education council with all 7 local school superintendents and our state officials. And just yesterday, thanks to City Manager Burrow and Mayor McCabe, participated our Chamber Transportation Committee, led by founder and former owner of BF Engineering, Don Beavers, met to formalize our plan to submit to RDOT, and I hope to come back before you in the next few weeks. To no one's surprise, our wish list is very similar to what you've seen at these RDOT meetings. The expressway is critical for us, the entrance and the exit off the expressway. But 2 other programs we identified is we know the expressway is continuing to the 5 and 7 junction, and while they're already working on it, we'd like to see 4-lane all the way from that point on to the 7 gate at the village to improve the flow of traffic and commerce from the village. And long term, we'd like to see, just as 70 East has been such a blessing for all of us in Hot Springs and Garland County, we'd like to see extension to the spillway on 7 South at Arkadelphia to facilitate economic development and travel from Texas and our friends from Southwest Arkansas. Finally, and I sincerely hope you'll put it down on your calendar, we're hosting the Elected Officials Appreciation Breakfast at the Chamber at 8 a.m. on November 21st. And just right around the corner, we'll be hosting representatives from International Economic Development Council for a site visit on December 1st to hopefully renew our ADO accreditation. We're the only accredited economic development organization in the state, and we want to maintain that. But our 3 years are up, and we've got to do that again. So that concludes my presentation. I think Cole McCaskill would like to talk to you just a second about opportunity zones, if he may.
Very good.
Oh, good.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and directors. I actually have a couple of handouts, if I may pass those out. Okay, so I'm just going to talk real briefly about our Opportunity Zone marketing effort and then also our retail recruitment initiative. If I could draw your attention first to the Opportunity Zone marketing piece that I'm sending around. That's the one that looks like this. This is a piece that we're using to promote the Hot Springs Opportunity Zones. On the front, we have a map sort of where the zones are in Hot Springs, and then a directive to contact our office for more information. And then on the back is kind of a simplified breakdown of how the incentive program works. It is a little bit contrite and interesting and hard to wrap your head around. We have spoken to a lot of different groups in Hot Springs on this topic, trying to get the word out. I spoke to the realtors last year and this year. Obviously, they're pretty involved in buying new property and businesses. Spoke to the Downtown Association, the Park Avenue Community Association, the Diamond Lakes Association of CPAs. Those are the folks who are actually managing the money and investment for a lot of our local businesses and investors. Surprisingly, not many of those CPAs were even aware of the program. So there's a lot more info on our website, hotspringsmetropartnership.com. Actually, if you Google Hot Springs Opportunity Zones, our website is the #1 non-advertisement site that comes up in an organic search. There are still no set rules and regs from the IRS on how this program will work. They're really behind in catching up with the legislation that created this new incentive. But there have been 3 tracks of updates on guidelines, or guidance, I should say, on how investors can proceed with the incentive. I have a list of investors who have contacted me for more specifics, and I'm pushing that information to them as I get it from the IRS. I'm also publicizing it in my weekly downtown update newsletter. Switching gears real quick to retail recruitment, if I could draw your attention to the second handout that I sent around. This is a retail recruitment marketing piece that we use. It really makes the case for why a retail type business would want to do business in Hot Springs. Again, this information is featured prominently on our website, along to a link to available commercial properties, as well as the Garland County property records. Coming up in January, Michelle Ratcliffe and I are headed to the International Council of Shopping Centers annual convention in Fort Worth. That group is also known shorthand as ICSC. It's a great place for us to meet and network with retailers and commercial realtors, mall, strip center investors, developers, real estate investment and trust managers, and property owners and companies that own and operate retail-oriented investments. We'll have a booth at that convention, just as we did last year. Last year was our first year attending that convention. We brought the virtual reality goggles that Visit Hot Springs produced the 360 video on. It was a really big hit. It really made Hot Springs stand out at that convention. We brought home several leads from that meeting as well. So that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, Gary or I would be happy to answer.
Director Garcia?
I'd just like to thank you for both of these handouts. This is, both of them, something I've been really interested in, and I appreciate the work going forward.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Jones, you have a guest. Did you want to introduce your guest?
It's Mr. Elmer Beard. Mr. Beard, would you come forth, please, and tell us what's on your mind and why you're here?
Thank you, Director Jones. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here to tell you what's on my mind and why I'm here. Earlier, when I've come before you, I committed or made a promise to the City Manager and Board of Directors that I'd come back to you as often as necessary. I appreciate you welcoming me back as often as necessary to share with you challenges that we faced in our own community about matters that I believe you're concerned about, but you're probably not as acutely concerned about them as the National Association of Advancement of Colored People. So on this 11th month and 5th day in 2019 at 7:18, I come to you with a resolution for the advancement of the administrative staff. We've talked about this, and as I go through my notes on my colored draft here to relax and soften the tone, I have to be open and honest with you. When I come to you, I like to make that since I sat there 15 years, 5 months to 20 days, I'd like to come to you as if I were a member of the Board of Directors, being a part of the city, to try to sense your feeling of what I feel when it comes to the administrative staff and the lack of diversity in the administrative staff. I'm trying to get you to feel what I feel. So let me read and digress and indicate when I'm digressing and then get back on track. You will be able to follow me because I'll let you know when I got off track, when I got back on, okay? So it's to the mayor and the board of directors, city manager of the city of Hot Springs. Whereas the city staff, employees, is lacking diversity and has no public record of researching or seeking minority staff members other than to start at the labor level and climbing to the top over a period of decades to reach city management assistant position as staff members. We, the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, Unit 6013, secretly founded in linen closets on Malvern Avenue and Central Avenue 77 years ago, we resolved that a demographic study report of all employees be provided for us within 1 week. We know the law says 72 hours. We're reasonable. You have work to do. That's extensive research. We allow you time to give us specific positions, salaries, even how long these people, employees, have been with us. I'm trying to get that personal pronoun so that you'll feel that this is a reasonable request as we put forth this necessary effort for diversity and growth when it comes to upper-level employee management position. 72 hours, disregard that. Next week is fine enough, or the next week, but I need an update if you're working on it. We also resolved that the city would disdain and never employ staff before advertising for that position. Considering the fact that we live separate lives lacking knowledge about prepared, academically and intellectually capable, experienced staff members, we resolved that you disdain advertising after you have employed. That's not an accusation. That's a common practice with institutions that I happen to know about. We have applicants among us prepared for those positions. We also resolved that the Board of Directors, City of Hot Springs, would confess of lack of diversity and launch a campaign for employees to mirror the growing population of the City of Hot Springs. Let me digress. When I sat there 48 years ago, and I was known as an agitator, and I have to live with that because I was. One newspaper reporter requested from the city mayor, why was so much money being spent in District 3? I was an alderman there then. And he had to tell because it had been neglected. Now that neglect hasn't been totally recovered and finished and fixed in the last 48 years. We're still recovering. We haven't recovered. We're still overcoming. We haven't overcome. So as a result of that, and I had to point that out in my digression, we are requesting certain things that take place as a result of campaigns. And the present campaign is about this staff position availability. When these kind of availability of staffs come open, we want to know about them. We strongly resolve that the campaign for diversity of staff and all employees would include departments, department heads. I believe the term division is used now more than department. These heads especially need to cooperate with the rest of us, using that pronoun us again, to search out and look for the kind of person prepared for these positions so that we can have a mirror of our population that reflects in the employees. Finally, we resolved that the city management would provide a report and update along the way of the progress of these efforts. This is submitted by the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, Unit 613, on the 11th month and 5th day, 2019 at 723 Hot Springs, Arkansas. Elma Beard, life member and secretary of the NACP. Thank you, and I'll be praying that this would be accepted in the manner in which it was presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beer.
This time we'll hear from the city manager, Mr. Bill Burrows, for the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, congratulations is in order for our finance department, Doretha Yates and her capable staff. They were awarded the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for 2019 budget by the Government Finance Officers Association. That's something that we kind of had a hiatus for a while. We did not submit our budget, but I know Doretha over the past 2 years and her staff have really worked hard to get that budget document into a form that we could submit again for this particular award. So it's not lost on me and hopefully none of the others how important of an award that is and how tough it is to put a budget document together that would win that award. So we appreciate you and all of your staff. A little more good news. August sales tax were up 8.79% over August of last year. It was the third straight month that we've seen revenue increases. Those are very important for our city services, and it's a great trend, and we hope those continue.
Phase 2 construction of David Watkins Park began this week with sidewalks being poured. They're going to be working on this other half of the retention basin that, when complete, will have a little music venue there, a little outdoor amphitheater. We've also got plans for the playground that's coming in. One of the things I want to make sure that we talk about when we talk about David Watkins Park, that originally was planned to have a handicap accessible playground. And as I learned more about that, working with Anthony Whittington, our parks director, you know, a lot of times when you have those type of playgrounds, you can get children that may have a disability to the playground, but they can't play on the equipment. It just means it's accessible. So we have added a little more money into that project, and we're going to have a complete barrier-free playground at the David Watkins Park. It's the only one we have in the city. We've already installed a barrier-free swing set at Kimry Park. We have one coming in for Hollywood Park. Those are swing sets that a child that may be confined to a wheelchair can actually use and have that experience. So we're very pleased that we're going to be able to build that barrier-free playground. Well, I appreciate the board as you have approved those budgets. So that's coming online. We've got Phase 2 started. Phase 3 is funded, and we're looking forward to getting that Park Avenue park. I want to thank all the Park Avenue Community Association members who have helped fundraise, who have worked, have sweat equity into the parks. Just want to thank them. We've got 2 retirements in October. Levi Jones has worked at the Utilities Department for 24 years. So we're going to. It's going to be sad to see Levi go. If you know Levi, he's been one that he's always quick with a smile and always quick for a good word, and he's usually a pretty fun character to be around. And Lisa Pritch in our Planning and Development Department, she's been with us for 18 years. Her husband will soon be retiring, and she retired this past, I think it was October 30th. So we happy for him, but hate to see him leave. Boo with a Badge. The attendance at Boo with a Badge this year, we had 10,000 kids come through Boo at the Badge. That is a phenomenal effort by about 50 of our police and firefighters, as well as community partners with the Sheriff's Office. There's really too many to name. Our volunteer fire departments, our lady auxiliaries, the library, the LifeNet, the list goes on and on. But it was incredible. They had a little haunted corridor that they do that was a lot of fun. So, you know, for something really, really safe for our children and our community to be able to go and take part in that, it was really a great event. Passed out $3,400 worth of candy. It was like bingo. So, just really, really proud of all the people who participated in that. All of our armed forces. I mean, well, we did have some armed forces down there. All of our public safety officers and all of the community helpers. That being on my mind, I learned something this week that I really thought was phenomenal, and it's going to be the subject of our city newsletter that will be soon coming out this month. We have 75 veterans that work for the city, either past or in active service. And, you know, just an excerpt from that. You know, we live and serve in this beautiful city and community. It's easy to forget the sacrifices given to allow the freedoms we too often take for granted. Each November, particularly on the 11th of the month, we all have an opportunity to come together and celebrate, to thank wholeheartedly our country's veterans. What started as Armistice Day to honor veterans of the War to End All Wars, World War I, was amended in 1954 to Veterans Day to honor veterans of all wars. Conflict continues to this day, and servicemen and women continue to step up to protect our democracy and the spread of peace and hope, both domestically and abroad. As I mentioned, we have 75 veterans that serve our city. I was shocked to learn that. Our veterans put service to country above their personal wants and needs. We have several that serve in our public safety. Just want to say a big thank you to our veterans and those that work for the city and those who have served outside of our city and continue to serve our nation. On behalf of all of us, we just want to say thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, that's my report.
Very good. Thank you. At this time, we'll hear announcements from individual directors on upcoming events. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of veterans, I wanted to mention that on this coming Friday, November the 8th, at the Elks Lodge, beginning at 5:30, the Veterans Committee will host their annual free spaghetti dinner for all veterans. It's free for all veterans, including the city 75 veteran employees. And also on Monday, the 11th, which is when, as you just heard, we recognize Veterans Day, the Veterans Day Parade is set to begin at 6:30 p.m. at the junction of Whittington Avenue and Park Avenue, and will travel down Central Avenue to Olive Street. And the Grand Marshal this year is retired Lieutenant Colonel Joe Calhoun, and he is an Army veteran of 24 years service in the Army. And anyone that still wants to participate in the parade, there's no entry fee, and that will begin at 6:30. And I believe this Saturday is it's Small Business Saturday coming up, and we encourage everyone to shop locally. We will be coming into the holidays, and we've got some amazing shops downtown and all shopping areas in all areas of town with unique gifts and wonderful restaurants everywhere. So please, as you're thinking ahead for shopping for the holidays, to shop locally.
Very good. Any
Thank
other
you.
announcements? Upcoming events?
Took mine, Mayor, as you.
Which part? We'll go ahead and proceed now with the consent agenda. These items are of routine in nature and do not merit discussion, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I so moved.
Director Jones.
Second.
Director Weatherford. All in favor of the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. At this time, we'll move on to new business. And then we'll consider Resolution R19-172 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R19-172, a resolution expressing support by the City of Hot Springs for the recommendations made by the Chamber of Commerce Future of the Army and Navy Hospital Committee to promote the safe and secure closing and possible repurposing of the Arkansas Career Training Institute complex. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Clark, seconded by
Second.
Director Weatherford. And I'll call upon City Manager Bill Burrows to start our conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. This comes to us as a request from the Chamber of Commerce and specifically the committee that our city attorney has just read. We have tonight with us Gary Troutman, our executive director of the Chamber, as well as Dr. Jack Porter and Clay Farrar. If you guys would like to come up and talk a little bit about the resolution, we'll be glad to hear you.
You've got a pretty good idea from Gary about why we're here. Our committee is composed of Dr. Jack Porter, the single best committee member in the history of mankind. He's just wonderful. He's just so much fun to work with. I would have said 24 hours ago, this resolution's nice, but does it make any difference? When we got the resolution from the A&P Commission last week, I got a call from Bozeman's office yesterday, and we had not heard from them. We got to meet with Congressman Westerman today. He carried the resolution with him. So these resolutions do make a little bit of difference. Really quickly, two goals. The first goal is this. This is the VA hospital on Roosevelt Road in Little Rock. It closed 40 years ago. It's still there. It probably will be there 40 years from now. It's fenced off. It breaks your heart. And this is where this town is headed unless we get our act together. Secondly, what we learned from the A&P Commission is it takes consensus. It takes showing consensus of you, A&P, Quorum Court, Chamber of Commerce, everybody, to get the attention of our congressional leaders. And so what we're doing here tonight is building part of that consensus. Quickly, there's really 4 requests to our congressional delegation. First, on June 30, folks, the federal government takes over that building, that 20-acre complex. And we must have, from the federal government, basic security and basic maintenance. Who's going to go up there and cut the grass after June 30? Who's going to go up there if there's a windstorm and take out the trees? It goes on and on and on. Secondly, security fencing. Along the entire backside, and the place is huge, it's 20 acres. It's 1,000 feet of backside. It's basically unfenced. You have 30 vacant buildings back on the backside. You're going to have a invasion of the homeless, okay? I mean, if I was homeless, I would go up there because you got buildings to choose from. You're out of the rain. It's not perfect, but it's better than being out on the street. The third request, come June 30, we got to have somebody patrol that place. And you, quite frankly, probably lose jurisdiction of the local police or lose part of your local police. We really have to have the National Park Police step up, okay? They happen to have their main office right next door to this property. And so we need this, your board, we need this community to go to our congressional leaders, to go to the National Park Service and say, folks, you're next door to it. You have to patrol it. You have to do a little bit of security up there. In addition to, the Hot Springs Police will help, but jurisdictionally, as of next July 1, it is the federal government's property. Finally, and these are all short-term goals, folks. There's a lot of long-term goals too, and I'm just doing the short-term goals. The 30 outbuildings on the back, 29 of them need to be torn down. They're fire hazards. It's going to attract the homeless. It's got raccoons, it's just snakes. You can't even imagine what's back there now. That's really what the resolution says that we're giving to you, that you're going to pass along. And I am pleased to tell you that I think somebody will listen to this resolution. They listened to the advertising promotion resolution of last week, so it might make a difference. So that's our dog and pony show. Thank y'all.
Any questions of Mr. Farrar? Not, thank you, and Dr. Porter, and for your leadership, and I know you have a strong committee that you're working with.
Can I ask a question?
Pardon?
I have a question for you, if that's okay. Yes, please. Specifically, in the information that we've gotten of the 29 of the 30 buildings that you want to tear down, do we have specific information on their actual condition, or are we just trying to clear the land so there's less to maintain?
I've toured it 3 times, and I speak with hyperbole. It may not be 29 out of 30. It might be 20 out of 30. Some of the buildings have actually collapsed. The roofs have collapsed. Okay, that's the ones next to the property line. Some of the buildings were built in 1900 and just have not been used for 50 or 60 years. There are 2 or 3 buildings that were built in the 70s that are actually still structurally sound and would be okay if there was going to be some use for them. But many of the buildings up there have environmental issues. Many of the buildings up there are complete. The windows are broken out. The windows have been broken out for decades. So if you ever toured it, it's kind of shocking what you see up there.
Oh, no, I agree. I've been up there. I just was curious because it's just a blanket statement, and I would hate to see buildings that may be in significant disrepair but still savable be torn down because it's something that might be faster or easier.
I'd encourage everybody on this board and everybody in the town to go tour the property with the ACTI people while you can to get a sense of it, because all I can tell you is when my group has toured it, we were shocked at the dilapidated condition.
Any other questions of Mr. Farrar?
Thank you.
Thank you. Did we have any members of the audience sign up to speak on this?
No, sir.
No. Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. I will consider Resolution R-19-173 and ask the City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-19-173, a resolution approving the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas wayfinding signage system pursuant to Federal Lands Access Program grant funding. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Clark. Director Jones with a second. Deputy City Manager Lance Spitzer will provide the staff overview.
Thank you, Mayor, board members. We have with us this evening Glenn Swantek. He's with the Merge Design Consultants. Before we get into the visuals and kind of a little bit of the wayfinding signage program, the overview, I'll provide a little bit of context for you all and those watching at home. The wayfinding signage program obviously was something that was very important, not only to the city of Hot Springs, but also the Hot Springs area. It was also part of the downtown economic development plan that was funded through the Economic Development Administration. That was one of the key takeaways from that plan, was to have a wayfinding signage system that really provides that context and the ability to move pedestrians and vehicular traffic through our area more efficiently. The funding that we've received is from the Federal Lands Access Program. We call it the FLAP program. We've been relatively successful in obtaining those funds. And as the program it states, it's meant to tie city, county, state resources to federal lands. Obviously, Hot Springs has a unique location. We do have the Federal Hot Springs National Park. So this program really does tie our assets and attractions from the city perspective with those at the Hot Springs National Park. The FLAP funding itself, we were successful in getting 100% funding for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is the design of the program, and that's what Merge Design Consultants is here for. And Phase 2 is actually where we're talking about the putting up the signage and the construction portion of it. And as you can see from some of the visuals, I think you will find that the program itself really lends itself to some of our unique landscape and some of our Hot Springs traits that make us a definite tourist destination. Merge Design, they have no stranger to wayfinding in Arkansas. They've done the Northwest Arkansas wayfinding program, also very involved in the Little Rock wayfinding program. So with that, I'll turn it over to Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. So I just have a brief presentation. I was here a while back for the workshop and received some feedback from you, and we made those adjustments, and I just wanted to show you the visuals of that. This is the document that we have completed. It shows all of the design details, all of the locations. This is the submittal that we will be sending to RDOT for their review and final approval. This is the step where we come to you. We ask for, your design approval, and then we'll send this off to RDOT. But I just wanted to show you a brief presentation of what the signs look like in space, basically in photos, and you'll see some of the adjustments that we've made. So this first exhibit is the downtown gateway. So you're being directed to downtown, you arrive to downtown, and then there's a sign that announces that you've arrived into downtown. We have the Hot Springs logo as part of that design. There we go. So just showing you other locations of where that would be. Vehicular directional signs that follow all of RDOT's standards for reflectivity and legibility, font, copy height, font style. But you can see that these are specialty design signs that have a accent along the bottom. That is actually have all of the real materials here. So you can see that this is sort of a translucent outdoor grade plastic material, resin material. So it has the effect of sort of a water, feature. All of the signs are reflective, so they'll be visible at night. So when a headlight shines on it, they meet all of the RDOT standards for reflectivity and legibility as well. And then we have all the real colors of what the signs are gonna be. But you can see from the slides, these are the various, some of the locations. We've gone out with the city with streets and public works, and located where the sign locations would be, and those are all documented in our package. Directing to not only city destinations like the visitor center, but also National Park Service destinations as well. So really what we're doing is we're taking all of the signs that are out there now, those will all come down, and we're organizing everything into a consistent system that is clear and it's organized. So you can see where you have a sign out here that directs to West Mountain that's not visible because of the trees. Those trees have grown. So you have something that's placed a little bit further up before you actually get to that decision point. More vehicular directionals. High-speed directionals. So if you're on a road that's over 25, 30 miles an hour, you get a 6-inch high or 5-inch high copy. Creating an organized parking trailblazer system to get people to your parking garage. So you can see how we're replacing those existing green and white signs out there with an organized design system that matches the wayfinding, that directs to public parking throughout the downtown area, and then directing to the parking plaza as well. One thing, switching out the banner, having that parking P icon when you get to the parking lot, just so it's consistent that you've arrived to a public parking facility. And then from a pedestrian standpoint, having pedestrian signs that connect the entire downtown area, using the existing infrastructure as much as possible. That saves money when when you can mount to those existing light posts. But those are all pedestrian directional signs directing to the arena, convention center, visitor center, parks, parking garages, all of those trails, all of those types of destinations. We've also been working with Park Service and coming up with some signs. We heard from a lot of our meetings that people will just cross the street. They won't use the crosswalks. So we want to make sure that we're telling people to use the crosswalks sort of in a friendly way, not necessarily in a regulatory way. And then also directing to restrooms and information as well. So locating those at the crosswalks, directing to the parking garage. So these are all pedestrian level signs that would be part of the wayfinding program. We are expanding the kiosk system. You have existing kiosks out there now that I'll show you an example of how we're expanding that. But we also want to add some more kiosks sort of in this area of the downtown. So across the street here at the convention center. And then also looking at refurbishing the existing kiosks that are out there. We still have the Hot Springs logo in there, but possibly using an LED sign on the one panel. So you'd have a static map and then an LED sign that you can constantly revolve information about upcoming events, festivals, things like that. Then another phase of the project is expanding it out to the entire city. So, having signs that replace the wayfinder. So it's a totally citywide program. We are starting in the downtown, but it's a comprehensive system that we've planned as part of this package. And then the gateways coming in. So looking at creating that identity as soon as you arrive at the boundaries of the city. Welcoming you to Hot Springs, having your logo and your brand, extending it out to the roadway, and then these are some photo examples of where those would be. So whether it's a high-speed sign or lower speed area, just sort of seeing what that would look like as gateway signs. And then we have one that is more of a monumental gateway that would be landscaped with lighting. And with a stone feature on the bottom of that as well. So it's just a quick presentation, just showing you the changes that we've made to it. It is comprehensive. It is citywide. Phase 1 is the design and planning, which we are complete with at this point. And then phase 2 would be the implementation of the downtown, and then subsequent phases as we move forward with the program. That's it.
Any questions? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. There looked like there was still a couple of signs that had the incorrect information, but have those been corrected?
Yes, yeah. This
Like West,
went to Glenn. I think
there was a couple of slides or more that,
Yeah, the program itself will. This right here is a draft, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So anything. This is a bid-worthy document, but we will be making adjustments on a few items.
okay.
Yeah, I think we had some terminology that we're still working through. I did adjust them already in these slides, the photo renderings, but we have those noted, and we're going to make those adjustments in here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You thought West Mountain got moved?
Well, I thought it was pointing east.
It was. Very good. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Any members of the audience sign up? No? Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Holiday.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution's adopted. This time we'll consider Resolution R-19-174 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-19-174, a resolution setting a time and date for hearing to abandon and close an unnamed alley within the block northeast of Sunny Sellers Street, between Sellers and Ewing Streets, and to vacate a portion of a certain street right-of-way located along Highland Street and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion if necessary.
Motion to adopt, but one moment here. Dwayne is leaving the room, and Emily, they're both with West Central Arkansas Planning Development. They were instrumental in aiding us in securing the full funding for the varied phases of 1 and 2 on the Wayside program, and we want to thank you very much for your assistance and guidance through that entire effort. So appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, it was an oversight. I should have hit that before we moved on.
You need a motion and
We
a
do
second.
need a motion.
Yes, sir.
And a second.
So moved.
A motion.
Second.
And a second. And we're going to have City Clerk Harmony Morrissey provide the staff overview.
Thank you, Mayor. Oaklawn Jockey Club is the petitioner. They have actually petitioned to vacate 2 areas in the same neighborhood. This comes to you tonight as a resolution to set the public hearing. This comes to you as one resolution for both areas, but when we go to vacate the properties, it will be 2 different ordinances. The first property is up on your screen. It is the portion of Highland. You can see a portion was already vacated earlier this year. This goes from the section that we've already vacated to the intersection there at Tuggle. The other area, let me scroll down, is the alleyway between what you see Sellers Street and Ewing Street here. Oaklawn owns all of the properties and is in the process of taking all those all those structures down at the moment. So what is before you is to set the public hearing for the next meeting on November 19th.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Morrissey? Does anybody sign up from the public?
No, sir.
Nope. Discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Holiday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
And Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. This time we'll consider Resolution R-19-175 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-19-175, a resolution adopting a budget for the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas for the year 2020. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
I so move, Mayor.
Director Garcia. Director Jones. And I'll call upon City Manager Bill Burrows to lead us off.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, and residents who may be in the audience as well as watching at home. It's my pleasure to present the 2020 budget for the city of Hot Springs. This particular board has seen this. We went through a lengthy work session as we looked at each one of these departments and basically went through every category for each department within the city. Thank you for your time and your work the other night. It helped us prepare this final document for your approval. I also like to thank Doretha Yates and her staff at Finance. Doretha and I spent many hours together as we worked on this document, as well as Minnie and Lance and really all the department heads. And definitely want to thank our employees as we look at these budgets, and you'll hear again tonight. We typically will have a deficit budget. We usually budget for the worst, and we perform to the best. And though we sometimes have deficit budgets, we consistently come in with a positive fund balance, and we anticipate that happening again in 2020. The budget is balanced and has been prepared in accordance with the Arkansas budget law and applicable local ordinances. The 2020 total budget is $123.5 million. This budget is specifically designed to align with the Board of Directors' vision and priorities for the City of Hot Springs. This message provides an executive summary of the budget and is divided really into three sections. The first section is a discussion of budget objectives and an overview of significant changes from the prior year. The second section provides an overview of the city's major funds and includes summaries of revenues, expenses, and major programs. Finally, the closing section includes a discussion of budget development and some of the fiscal strategies. The primary objective of this budget is to advance the board's current vision and priorities for the City of Hot Springs, which were set at the board retreat held on August 3rd, 2019, and provide basic and essential services through sustained departmental operations. The board's priorities for 2020 are continue to implement the new water supply, redevelop the Majestic property, develop an improved compensation plan for employees, and develop a street and sidewalk plan with multiple projections. Other new and ongoing major projects which will reach into 2020 are completion of the radio communication system project, wastewater treatment plant improvements, specifically the tertiary filters, downtown plans and parking, continue advancement of the Northwoods project, advancement of the Greenway, our Malvern Avenue redevelopment corridor, David F. Watkins Park, and remodel of several departments, and actually move into 324 Malvern from our finance, city attorney, and our utility billing. In addition to those, we also have a pretty large bite at the apple on a solar project. We'll become one of 6 cities in the nation that will be totally self-reliant on reliable energy once we have the solar project complete. We've also embarked on the Hope Works project with a partnership with the Jackson House Board, which will be a work program for homeless. We've got the comprehensive plan that we've worked on this year that will be coming to fruition in 2020. We continue our dam improvements at all of the lakes that we own on the northern section of the system. We have several water tanks that are being repaired, painted, or built. And then the switchgear at the Washtop plant, I'd sent some pictures out earlier to the board of what that's looking like, and it almost looks like a manufactured home till you get inside and you start seeing all of the electronics and the things that are happening there. The $123.5 million 2020 proposed budget is $4.5 million above the 2019 amended budget. Some major increases in the 2020 proposal include the funding of $1.5 million reserve, basically from our additional revenues that we'll be receiving from the Oaklawn gaming. Funding for improvements to the 324 Malvern address, 2 additional police officers, and 2 additional customer service representative, and then a 2% COLA for all employees. On the revenue side, there is a projected 2.5% increase in sales tax collections, 9% in Oaklawn activities, and previously approved increases in water, wastewater, and stormwater. When we've looked at the last 3 months of the Oaklawn revenues, they've been coming in about 83 to 1 month. I think we hit 90% above what we had in 2018. This 9% I just mentioned is specifically on growth. The total 2020 general fund revenue is $27 million. The majority of the revenue is from the 1% sales tax. Sales tax revenue increased 4.29% in 16, 0.02% in 17, 1.47% in 18, and as of August, we've increased 4.44% over last year. The 2020 budget is based on a projected increase of 2.5%, which is conservative based on the current level of economic activity in Hot Springs, as well as the national economic outlook. And additional sales tax growth will be positively impacted by new laws mandating sales tax remittance on internet sales. Oaklawn revenue from games of skill increased 8% in 2018 and is tracking to increase around 10% in 2019. An increase in 9% is forecasted for 2020. In 2019, Arkansas voters approved full casino gambling at Oaklawn and other venues and changed the distribution formula, providing a greater distribution to the county and the city where the gambling facility was located. Prior to this change, Oaklawn gaming revenue had increased about 10.4% in 2019. The new distribution went into effect in July 2019 and is estimated that the gaming revenues from July through December of 2019 will be 80 to 90% above the same periods of 2018. Oaklawn is also expanding its gaming room, and it will be open for most, if not all, of the 2020 season. For 2020, we used a 9% growth rate and applied it to the new distribution. We feel that, again, that this is a very conservative estimate. In addition, we are going to allocate 90% of the new revenues, approximately $1.5 million, to a reserve fund restricted for unfunded capital needs, both past and present. The total expenditure for the general fund is $28 million. Transfers to other funds in the general fund expenditures are about 60%. That's primarily to our street, police, and fire. Of the remaining amount after the transfer, the majority is personnel expenditures. For the proposed 2020 general fund budget, expenditures exceed revenues by $789,000. This will be funded from the general fund balance, which is projected to be approximately $6.8 million at the end of 2019. If you recall, in 19, I believe we budgeted a deficit of $800,000. We're projecting to come in at $1 million in the positive. Police fund in 2020, police revenue budget was $14.5 million, $689,000 increase from the 2019 adopted revenue budget. This includes a 2.5% increase in their sales tax as well. As you know, the police and fire have a 0.5% sales tax broken out, 60% police, 40% fire. The amount of the subsidy from the general fund is expected to increase as well. That increase will be in the amount of $645,000 for 2020. That brings that subsidy between the two public safeties to right at $4 million. And that $4 million is in addition to the $4 million that we typically budget for that general fund dependent department. The majority of the increase is 80% personnel. This reflects a 2% salary increase, mandated step increases, and then the addition of the 2 new police officers. Fire fund, their revenue budget is $10 million for 2020. About a $500,000 increase over the 2019 adopted revenue budget, again, due to the 2.5% increase in sales tax. Other revenue sources remain consistent with the prior years. The amount of subsidy from the general fund is expected to increase $326,000 in 2020. As with most service funds, the majority of the expenditures is personnel cost. The increase in personnel expense reflects the 2% salary increase and mandated step increases. Another major increase for 2020 is for building repairs due to the need for repairs to several of our fire stations. The remaining budget is routine and has very few changes from 2019. Jail maintenance tax fund and jail expense fine funds. The jail maintenance tax fund accounts for the 3/8 sales tax or 3/8 tax paid to Garland County for prisoner housing. It is estimated this tax will produce $2.8 million in 2020 that will be directly paid to Garland County to house the city prisoners. Street and street highway tax fund, the combined revenue for these two funds is approximately $3.8 million and mainly comes from state turnback and then the general fund transfer that we have annually. A new fuel tax has been implemented by the state of Arkansas, and cities can expect a 5 to 10% increase in their street turnback revenues. However, we've conservatively budgeted that at the 5%. The 2020 expenditure budget for street fund and street highway, or both street funds, is $4.4 million. The airport fund, the 2020 revenue budget is $3 million, a decrease from 2019. Fuel sales accounts for 68% of the total revenue budget and are very sensitive to market changes in cost of fuel. The 2020 expenditure budget is $4.3 million. However, a large portion of the expense budget is depreciation. The airport has about $1.1 million in depreciation. Depreciation expense is significant. The potential deficit is an accounting element which occurs when all the grant revenue is recognized in the year we receive it, but the depreciation for the associated asset is spread out over the life of the asset. Solid Waste Fund has a healthy fund balance. 2020 revenue budget is $7.8 million. The 2020 expenditure is $8.5 million. That's about $700,000 deficit budget. It's typical for this particular fund to have that same type of deficit budget. They have some very large pieces of equipment. Some of those are $250,000 for one truck. So they typically budget for the worst and perform to the best as well. Again, they've had a consistent budget of deficit, however, coming in again on a positive side each year. This year, their capital budget is $1.2 million, which makes up a lot of that expenditure. On the water side, the budget is $16.3 million. Expenditures of $14.7 million. That fund is doing well. Approximately $3.7 million is the cost share to utility administration fund, and that particular fund is our utility billing. Wastewater, their revenue is budgeted at $17.6 million with expenditures of $18.9 million. This is one fund that we will watch closely during the year. Personnel expenses due to the salary increase was a big portion of that, as well as some of the larger projects that we have in the wastewater system. Debt service is a significant part of the wastewater fund due to the funding in 2009, 2013, and then the 2016 for system improvements that we needed to meet the requirements of the consent administrative order. Employee wellness is something that the city has struggled with for several years. However, I think, knock on wood, we've turned the corner. The Employee Wellness Fund has performed well since rate increases were implemented and a new third-party administrator and network were implemented in 2017. Results were favorable in 18 and are on track to be favorable for 19. A fund balance of approximately $3 million is forecast at the end of this year, and I don't have to remind many of the board members the shape of this particular fund in 15 and 16. For 2020, $5.2 million in both revenue expenses have been budgeted. There is no increase in premiums. If the expenses come in under budget, those differences may be transferred to the reserve fund in the future. Premiums are charged back to each fund based on the number of employees. In addition, premiums are collected from retirees, COBRA eligible individuals who elect to participate in the plan. The development of the city's budget takes several months and hundreds of hours of staff time. For this year, each department was instructed to develop a conservative budget focused on the board's objectives and priorities while recognizing operational needs and the effects of inflation on the city's ability to attract and retain a quality workforce. Once the departments had completed their budgets, meetings were held with the city manager, finance director, human resources director to review each budget. After reviews and changes by this group, the budget was reviewed by the city manager for further adjustments, and then a recommendation to the board of directors, which we did at your retreat. The City of Hot Springs budget is balanced and fiscally responsible for the service demands currently experienced by the city. In some cases, it is balanced using fund balance from prior years, a practice consistent with standard accounting practices when budgetary demands fluctuate significantly from year to year. For the general fund, the city has historically, again, approved a budget that required fund balance, but yet came in well above. The required general fund balance per board policy is 16.5% of annual operating expenses. This equates to around $4.4 million using the 2020 budget. The estimated ending fund balance for 2020 is $6.1 million. Budgets for enterprise funds, parking, stormwater, airport, water, wastewater may require a small amount of fund balance. These decisions are based on the fund balance availability and then the cash flow required by the fund. There are still priorities that remain unfunded, and staff will continue to explore new ways of meeting these funding requirements. Overall, the 2020 budget is based on sound fiscal decisions and provides the necessary funding for many of the board's priorities. I wish to again thank the department heads and all the dozens of city staff members who helped in the preparation, analysis, and presentation of this budget. Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I know you and your staff put a lot of work and effort into the budget and preparing. Now, any questions of Mr. Burrow or Ms. Yates regarding the 2020 budget from directors? Director Garcia.
Just had a couple of comments. I don't think it's real questions. As you said, the budget included 2 new police officers in the number of employees, and public safety is the number one issue that I hear from our residents, and I think this is a positive move, and I support even more police officers, and hopefully when we do our mid-year review, we'll be able to see if we can afford any additional officers. It included a slight increase in our streets paving repairs budget, and I know we'll continue to work to try to increase that more. Next to public safety, I hear a lot from residents regarding our streets. Now, a lot of those are not city streets. A lot of them are state highways, but some are related to our city streets too. And you mentioned that the city portion of the jail tax going towards our county jail for next year is looks like it'll be 2.8. In addition, we generate that much of the county tax within the city of Hot Springs. So within the city of Hot Springs, we're generating about just under $6 million for the jail. And as you said about the reserve funding, when I first joined the board in 2011, this is something that we've wanted to do every year, and we've fallen short. But I am so proud of having this included, that we will have that reserve in the budget going forward. But we have continued to increase our general fund, all favorable. And this year's budget is looking like it's going to end the year with a $1.7 million favorable variance. Yeah. So I applaud all of the city staff, management, department heads, every employee for making that possible.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Burrow? Any member of the audience sign up to speak?
No, sir.
Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. The 2020 capital and operating budget is adopted.
May I offer a resolution in authorizing amendments to the current budget for the City of Hot Springs for the current year of 2019. This budget that was just passed included a 2% raise for employees, and that is less than what we received in our report that should be going forward, and it's half of what's being offered to the county employees by my understanding. And I offer this to make this amendment that the 2019 budget be amended to provide a 2% lump sum payment based upon city employee base salaries to be dispersed on the pay period ending November 29th, 2019, to be paid in the first check paid period in December, and further that the finance director be hereby directed to make the necessary corresponding adjustments across all funds to accomplish the intent of this resolution. And as I said, we have a 1.7 million favorable variance so far this year. That was the motion.
Well, staff can present that to you for your next meeting, but you've just approved Resolution 19.
That was the 2020 budget. This is 2019.
Okay, we should have added that to the agenda, the approval of the agenda section.
So are you saying we can't make a motion?
You could have, yes, prior to the approval of the agenda.
Can we not amend it now?
Your rules say if it's not on the agenda, 2/3 of you have to amend the agenda to add it to the agenda.
I was in a prevailing vote, so I moved to take that back to amend it.
Prevailing vote on the approval of the agenda.
Yes.
That item has passed. You have to do that before you move to the next item.
So what are the options?
Bring it to the next meeting.
Is that doable? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep us legal.
I'm sorry.
So that brings us to the final action item of the evening, and that is ordinance 1941. And in order to be able to move forward, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only. Motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Director Clark, second by Director Weatherford. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Council, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 1941, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of hotel and restaurant gross receipts tax bonds, pledging collections of the 3% hotel and restaurant gross receipts tax to pay the principal of and the interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters related thereto, and declaring an emergency. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Well, let's see, Bob's up. Doretha, did you want to kick this off, or were you going to have Bob or Bill, or? All right. Go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. Bob Wright with Cruz & Associates, City Financial Advisor. We've been in front of you previously discussing this financing. This is for the ball field that was brought to you from the A&P. The city went to the vote of the citizens back in September to approve up to $8.5 million in debt to pay for a $7.5 million project. We're here tonight to present to you the final numbers and looking for your approval. Stevens, the underwriter on the transaction, went out into the market this morning at 9:30. It's been quite the uneven market in the last couple of months, but we wanted to go ahead and get this locked in and lock in the interest rates because we're so far below where we started. We've been working on this since the beginning of the year. I'd handed this out before the meeting, and you might have had a chance to look through it, and these are the same type of post-pricing reports we provided in the past. I've labeled the pages, really three things to look at. Page 3 are current market conditions. We looked at this back in August when the markets were in flux, when we did the refinancing on the wastewater deal, and on the water. Back in August, when we hit the very bottom of the trough, we were lucky there. Here we are. You can look on that chart on page 3. Rates have been moving up a little bit. So we wanted to go ahead and stop the bleeding as far as rates continuing to move up. So there's two lines on there, and we discussed this last time, that the A&P Commission took the step to issue these bonds, and this is not typical of what we've done for the city in the past. We issued these bonds as taxable bonds, not tax-exempt bonds. There's a difference in interest rates, but you can see the chart there on 3. Historically, taxable rates have been much higher than tax-exempt. That's why cities always issue tax-exempt, because it's much more efficient financing for the citizens. That gap has narrowed considerably. A&P Commission took the step to do it taxable to take away any limitations in the future on sponsorships of the tournaments, of the ball fields, or anything like that. All 3 of our firms worked with the city of Springdale, and when they did their ball field, the baseball field back in 2006 as a tax-exempt transaction, it's been very limiting and a hassle to keep up with that over the years. So that is, from the A&P standpoint, they're taking the steps to do taxable. It just so happened that historically those rates are not really very onerous on the financing itself. Page 5, just to report to you, this is the pricing that was locked in today. When we started this and we reported back to the A&P and the city, as far as the interest rates, we were looking at a true interest cost, a TIC of 4.12%, and we were able to lock in today at 3.54%. That's on a 30-year transaction, so a fixed rate of just over 3.5% for 30 years. That makes the efficiency of that ballpark so much better than where we started. So well over a half percentage point below what we had been looking at. One other thing to point out, and it's in the back, and I wanted to include it for you, and it's with the blue heading on top. It's the rating report. We took the step to work with Moody's rating service to rate not only the city of Hot Springs and economically, but that flows through to the actual transaction and such. We had a very long, lengthy discussion with the Moody's analyst, with Mr. Burrow, with Ms. Yates, and went through. And Steve Harrison, he was also on the phone, went through a lot of the questions that they had, answered everything specifically to what they needed. So the rating that came in for the city is A1, just barely missed getting to the AA3 category. You can see that report, and I won't go through it in detail, but I'll let you read through it. Just some of the limitations. And I think a lot of this will actually look better, even a year from now, and when we might come back for some other projects. Once the casino, the hotel is built, they look at it as city is reliant upon tourism. Obviously, they look at it as some of the shortfalls and some of the issues regarding the pension obligations, just some things that are out of the city's control. But I think that with the A1 rating helped on the financing here, it will help us going forward on future financings. And I applaud Bill and Doretha and Steve. Really helped solidify the steps and the process to get a good rating as far as A1. So that bodes well for the city. Friday Firm is here, to answer any questions on the ordinance itself. With your approval tonight, we will send out confirmation tickets tomorrow to the investors and lock this in and close on December 12th. The funding will be in place for the A&P to begin the process.
Questions of Mr. Wright? Not, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Ms. Yates, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. Any members of the audience? Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted.
Mayor, there is an emergency clause that's contained in Section 24 of the ordinance. I'll read it in its entirety. Section 24 is hereby ascertained and declared that the improvements are immediately needed for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, and to remove existing hazards thereto. The improvements cannot be accomplished without the issuance of the bonds, which cannot be sold at the interest rate specified herein unless this ordinance is immediately effective. Therefore, it is declared that emergency exists, and this ordinance being necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety shall be enforced and take effect immediately upon and after its passage. That concludes your reading of the emergency clause. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt the emergency clause.
Motion to adopt the emergency clause.
Second.
Director Jones, seconded. Director Weatherford. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Emergency clause is adopted. This concludes the action items for this evening. Board of Directors items for discussion. Any director have an item for discussion? Director Garcia.
Just a couple of things. Last week, the state girls volleyball tournaments were in Hot Springs. The Lakeside School, I believe, was the host school. Several area schools did very well in the tournament, and wanted to thank, I heard a lot of favorable feedback from other schools about the Hot Springs and the convention center, so I wanted to do a shout out to the convention center. And secondly, I wanted to ask if, as a response for Mr. Beard is prepared, would you copy the board on the data information of the percentage of each different minority and women in employment in the city, and then the percentage of each in the population of the city?
I would interpret his request as a Freedom of Information request. If there is a document that exists that is responsive to that inquiry, then we can provide that very quickly. If it's not, then that document would have to be prepared. So I don't know when that might be.
Well, I just asked for a copy.
Sure, as we prepare something, we'll be glad to get the board a copy of that. I think Mr. Baird has spoken with our Human Resource Director, Minnie Lennox, in the past, and I think we keep these rather updated, so we should be able to get you that information relatively soon.
I'm just clarifying that you'll get a copy if something exists. I don't know that anything exists.
Any other item for discussion amongst directors? I'll just make a comment that as Director Garcia made mention of the state volleyball tournament, we had a final high school mountain bike competition at Cedar Glades this past Sunday. And, they traveled from all corners of Arkansas, and certainly Northwest Arkansas is well represented. I don't have a final count of the number of competitors, but I think it was in excess of 200 competitors that came in from various across numerous age groups, and fun was had by all out at Cedar Glades, and I think it was about 39 degrees or 35 degrees at 8 o'clock when the first race went off, and I think the last race went off around noon, so they had a little warmer weather, but they had to sit around until then. So mountain biking is alive and well in Hot Springs, and the youth throughout Arkansas are taking up that sport with a lot of enthusiasm. And that is one sport that I have attended from a high school standpoint that just about everybody is smiling. It doesn't matter where you finish. The fact they got out there, rode the trail, finished. Pardon?
Unless you wreck or you smile at them.
Well, they dust off their britches and get going, so unless they have a mechanical then. But so it's nice to see them. I saw one of them leaving one of the area hotels and putting their bikes on the back of the vehicle with the daddy headed up to the trail, and so they come in and bring they're spending overnight. Mm-hmm. So and those bikes aren't cheap. So with that concludes my report. Last chance for anybody. Hearing none. Director Jones, yes, Director Jones.
I move that we adjourn for the night.
Very good. Got a motion. Second.
Second.
Yeah, let's go, Gary.
Director Holliday, all in favor of the motion to adjourn, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.
You have one.